Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. Today I'm going over my top 10 albums of 2023. There's a bunch of links down below. Make sure you check them out. There's links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist I put together every week, and the Patreon page. Make sure you go check all that out. Of course, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. So 2023 was an absolutely incredible year for music. So many great releases. So this past Sunday, Ian and I went over our top 3 albums of the year. I had a much larger list than that. I had probably a solid 25 albums, I think, total that I considered in my top 10. So I got a big list I'm going to go over. I'm going to try to fit all this into one episode. I've only numbered 1 through 10, and then I've got a bunch of honorable mentions to go along with it. And then make sure you come back tomorrow and watch Ian's top 10. I finally got Ian to sit down and record his own video after about 2 years I've been asking him to do a video. He's going to do his top 10 tomorrow. So like I said, I'll start with some of my honorable mentions. Then I'll probably do like the back half of my top 10. And I'll do some more honorable mentions before I get to the top 5. The first honorable mention I got is an album that I was really surprised by. It's probably the album I was the most surprised by in 2023. I never thought I was going to like this album. It's a really great one, though. This is Dolly Parton, Rockstar. It's all covers, at least it's mostly covers. I think there's maybe a couple of original tracks on here. It has that Dolly twang to it. It's really, there's a charm to the album overall, but there's a couple of covers on here, like her cover of Purple Rain. She absolutely kills it. It's a great cover of that song. She brings a bunch of other musicians in to sing these songs with her, and some of the artists she picks were kind of odd choices originally when I saw the track listing, and then after sitting down and listening to the songs, they actually turned out really great. Like I said, I was really surprised by how good this album is. I guess next album is something kind of along the same lines as that Dolly Parton album, something that I never really saw myself enjoying as much as I did. Actually, after it was first released, I didn't really check it out. I knew it was out there, but it was probably a couple of weeks after it came out. Someone recommended it to me on Facebook and said, "Hey, look, if you enjoy Pink Floyd, I really think you'll enjoy this album." I sat down, listened to it, and it was almost like I was listening. Obviously, it's not the Dark Side of the Moon, but it has a really strong Dark Side of the Moon vibe to it. The artist is Lil Yachty. The name of the album is Let's Start Here. And like I said, this is not something that's in my wheelhouse. It's not something I would have ever checked out had it not been recommended to me. But I was impressed by it, and it's really interesting. Of course, it is hip hop, it's rap. But it's got this really, like I said, really strong Pink Floyd vibe to it. He said he was really heavily influenced by Dark Side of the Moon before he recorded this album, and I think it really came through on here. It's interesting. It's not something I'll listen to a whole lot, but if you're a Pink Floyd fan, if you're a rap fan, I think it's definitely an album to check out. Another album that I really loved last year, and actually for a long time, it was in my top 10. It was probably in the 6 to 8 range in my top 10. And then some other great albums were released, kind of pushed it down. I still probably put it in my top 15, though. It is a really good album, and that is Phantom Mind by Ghost. I've gotten more into Ghost over the last couple of years, and I was really impressed with this album. Of course, I think this is all covers on this album. I think it's just an EP, so only 6 tracks on here. But Phantom of the Opera, I think is probably one of the best covers that any band has done in the last couple of years. It's maybe not as good as the original, but it's really close to it, I think. The next album is one that I discovered later in the year. It was actually a recommendation from someone in the Vinyl Den Facebook group. They know I'm a big punk fan. I have been for a long time. Of course, I grew up on bands like the Ramones and Rancid and Green Day and bands like that, Offspring. But I love a lot of the newer stuff too. And this is a newer band. I think this is only their second album. I really enjoyed this one. It's just a fun punk album. It's got an emo edge to it like a lot of the newer stuff does. The band is called Youth Fountain. The album is called Together in Lonesome. And it's just a good album from beginning, and there's not a bad track on here. And like I said, it's got a really strong emo edge. Like I said, a lot of the newer punk stuff does. But I'm really interested to see where this band goes moving forward. So I was never a really big Matchbox 20 fan. I liked their first couple of albums, but that was about it. And then I think it was later part of the year, like September, October, I was in Target. They had a big clearance sale going on, and then they have the new album for like $5. The new album is called Where the Light Goes. And I was really impressed with this. Obviously I wasn't like super blown away. Obviously I don't have it in my top 10, But it's an album that, from beginning to end is just a really solid pop rock album. And, I think, there's not a bad track on here. There's not a skippable track. Of course, Rob Thomas it does great on here. The production's really great. But, just a fun album to sit down and spend and listen to. The next album is the first of two albums that this band released in 2023. Both of them were produced by Dave Cobb. Dave did a great job with both of these albums. But it is Rival Son, Dark Fighter, and of course Lightbringer was their other album. I'll get to that once I get into my top 10. But Rival Sons, if you haven't checked this band out, man, I've really been impressed with their music. They give me this like really strong like early 90s Black Crowes vibe. I think it's really strong in their music. And, I think that this is a band where when people talk about rock being dead, this is a band that I point everyone to, because they're doing some great music. They're doing some great rock music. And I think they're one of those bands that's going to kind of continue to push rock into the future. So in 2022, Dropkick Murphys started doing this collaboration project with the daughter of Woody Guthrie, where the band, so I guess I kind of backtrack a little bit. So Al Barr, which is one of the lead singers of Dropkick Murphys, temporarily left the band to go help take care of his ailing mother. While he was away from the band started working with Woody Guthrie's daughter, started going through his lyrics, and what they started doing was they put this collaboration project together where the band is creating music with the lyrics from Woody Guthrie. In 2022, they released the album called This Machine Still Kills Fascists. It's a fantastic album. It's one of the better albums that Dropkick Murphys has released, probably 15 years. So part 2 came out in 2023 called Okama Rising. I don't think it's quite as good as that first album, but there's still a lot of really great tracks on here. And it's really kind of cool to kind of go through, listen to Dropkick Murphys do this acoustic album using Woody Guthrie's lyrics. It's just, I think it's a really neat project. I know other artists have done similar things with Woody Guthrie's lyrics over the years, but, it's just a great one to sit down and just listen to. So the album that I got at number 10, I guess I should preface this by saying that I am not a country music fan really at all. I like some like 90s country music, like Garth Brooks and artists like that. Country has really changed over the last 25, 30 years though, and I'm really not a fan of the direction that it's taken, except for this next artist. I've been a big Chris Stapleton fan, really since the start of his career. So his new album was released, this was released back on November 10th. The album is called Higher. It's what you expect from Chris Stapleton. Just an absolute banger of an album. I love he has this like really strong kind of blues vibe to a lot of his music, and it's not like country, like traditional, like normal newer country is. I think there's a lot of like throwback country in here. There's some blues in here. There's obviously some rock included in his music. It's just like all around a really good album to sit down and listen to. And, I love Chris Stapleton. I don't think he's released a bad album. And beginning to end, there's not a bad track on this one either. So the album that I got at number 9 is one that, when it first released, I think it was just okay, and then it's really grown on me since then. It was released back on September 8th. I really loved her first album. Her second album, like I said, I wanted to see a lot of growth in her music, and it really kind of took me a little bit to see where the areas that she had grown on this new album. But the album is Guts by Olivia Rodrigo. Of course, she's absolutely killing it. She's all over the place right now. And, it's great to see a newer, younger female artist pushing rock music into the mainstream. And like I said, her first album had that there was a really strong like boy crazy kind of feel to the album, which doesn't speak to me at all. But I thought she did a really good job with the music on that first album. But I wanted to see some growth, and she really did. I mean, once I sat down and listened to this album for a couple of times and really understood what she was doing in these songs, there's a lot of growth here. And I think this is a much more introspective album. She's really looking at how she responds to situations on this one. I think that's where this album really shines. So I already talked about Dark Fighter in my honorable mentions. So of course at number 8 is Lightbringer by Rival Sons. I think this is an improvement on what they did on Dark Fighter. It's a little bit more of a lighter element to this album. It's not as dark and heavy as, even though Dark Fighter is not dark and heavy, but for what that album is, it definitely has a heavier tone to it. And I think what they did on this album, I think this is the best album that Rival Sons has done so far in their shorter career. I think this is their 8th studio album that they've released. And, like I said, with Dark Fighter, I love to see the direction this band's going. I love seeing what they're doing, and I just hope that they continue doing it. The album that I got at number 7 is the only one I'm going to talk about today that I don't actually own a physical copy of. Even though I'd love to see it get released on either CD or on vinyl, it hasn't yet. It was just released back on December 1st. The album is called Nosebleeder by Lil Lotus. I'll put a picture up over here of it. And, it was actually, when he released his debut album back in 21, it's called Airboy. It was actually a recommendation to me from the Facebook group, and I absolutely love that album. And, I didn't even know he was releasing a new album until, I think, just a couple of days before it came out. And it's been one of my most played albums since the beginning of December. And, if you're unfamiliar with Lil Lotus, he's got I think he's got like an emo rap history before he started releasing albums. But the 2 albums he's released are, I guess I'd classify it more like, emo punk, I guess is probably the best way to put it. It's got like, he mixes punk rock with emo, with some trap beats. It's just a really good album. I absolutely love it. It's kind of a continuation musically of what he did on Airboy. So if you go back and listen to Airboy, or if you've listened to Airboy before, I think you'll really enjoy Nosebleeder. So the album I've got at number 6, I think I had it at number 3 when I did my mid-year top 3. It's one I've enjoyed all year long. One of my most played albums. I was really anticipating this album before it got released. It came out back on March 24th. This is an album that this is actually a side project put together by Fat Mike of NoFX, Sam King from Get Dead, and Sesky Ramos, who's a hip-hop artist. And it's a really fun, really interesting, probably one of the more interesting albums that I think came out in 2023. It's called This Is Crime Wave by Co-Defendants. And, it's this really interesting mixture of hip hop and punk and funk and rock and just like all these different things kind of mixed together. And it just makes, like I said, for one of the more interesting albums I think that was released in 2023. All right, so I made it all the way through my list. I recorded this entire video, and it ended up being over 30 minutes long, which is way too long for a video on my channel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this up and do 2 halves. So you got half of my honorable mentions, and then you got number 6 through 10 of my top 10. So come back and check out the second part of this video where I've got another half of my my honorable mentions and the top 5 of my best albums of 2023. But like always, make sure you give the video the old thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below, and that's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.